The docking ramp hissed open with a plume of compressed gas. Jacko Monroe stepped onto Unity Halo Station like he was walking into his favorite pub back home, boots scuffed, hoodie stained, and chewing on something vaguely jerky-like. Around him, towering figures in polished armor and robes of silk turned to stare. He popped the jerky out of his mouth and gave a lazy wave. Day. Silence followed. Only the low hum of artificial gravity and the faint hum of ion cores filled the grand welcome chamber. An insectoid delegate from Vermtar flinched as Jack adjusted his backpack, which had a dangling cork hat tied to one side. A tall being with translucent skin and glowing arteries muttered something in a language that sounded like cracking ice. Jacko didn't care. He'd been in weirder places. Once wrestled a saltwater croc during a high school camping trip. That was a story. This was just orientation. A squat blue alien waddled up, reading from a data tablet. Jack Monroe. Human male. Earth delegate. Civilian class. Are you armed? Jacko patted himself down casually. Just with charm and a questionable sense of humor, mate. The blue one blinked both sets of eyes. This is a peace academy. Right. Guess the boomerang's staying in the duffel then. He winked. The blue alien did not understand winks. Or jokes. Or Jacko. The tour was brief. Too brief. The academy was built like a cathedral designed by someone high on quantum geometry, everything arched and twisted at impossible angles, defying gravity but somehow functional. This area is strictly diplomatic, the guide droned. Do not enter with personal tools, stimulants, or Earth origin recreational items. Define recreational. The guide didn't respond. Jacko smirked and followed. They passed training domes, holosuits, hydropods. Dozens of species milled about, some floated, others slithered. Most glanced at him and looked away fast, like they didn't want to catch whatever strange energy followed him in. And then he saw him. Commander Vrakthas stood beside the combat arena platform. 7 feet of muscle, scales, and a ceremonial plasma halberd strapped to his back. His 6 eyes locked on Jacko instantly. You didn't need translation software to read disgust. Is that the human? Vrak asked the guide, voice like grinding boulders. The Earth delegate, yes. Vrak tilted his head. You sent a child in cloth armor. Jack dropped his bag and scratched behind his ear. This armor's called a hoodie, mate. It's comfy, absorbs beer, and hides snack stains. Unacceptable. Jack tilted his head back. Didn't realize this was a fashion show. Vrak stepped forward. I challenged this delegate to an integration trial. Immediately. Wait, like a test? A test, the guide confirmed. To measure adaptability under pressure in foreign environments. Optional. Jack's grin widened. Optional? Sounds like a dare. I'm in. The integration trial was anything but fair. Jack was dropped into a simulation dome with nothing but the contents of his backpack, duct tape, a flashlight, a pack of instant noodles, and a half-eaten bag of caramel koalas. The dome shimmered to life. Suddenly he was standing in a swamp filled with stinging fog and low visibility. Alien shrieks echoed from all sides. A disembodied voice boomed overhead. Objective, survive for 30 minutes. Locate and deactivate the beacon. Right, Jack muttered, tying the noodles to a stick like a flag. Operation Aussie MacGyver begins. 10 minutes in, he'd fashioned a makeshift gas mask using a beer can tab, a sock, and the air filter from his emergency inhaler. The fog stopped burning his eyes. 20 minutes in, he'd turned the flashlight into a signal disruptor by bouncing light off his compact mirror and reflecting it into a security sensor, blinding it temporarily. The beacon turned out to be inside a simulated creature's mouth. Jack distracted it with a thrown candy koala and then stunned it using a charged battery rigged from his flashlight wiring. When the dome deactivated, a group of instructors stood stunned behind observation glass. Jack emerged coughing, covered in swamp goop, and grinning like a feral cat. "So, how'd I do?" The guide didn't answer. Commander Vrak, however, stepped forward with an audible snarl. "You improvised using unsanctioned objects. Your tactics were illogical. Worked though, didn't it?" Jacko shrugged. "Aussie rule, if it looks dumb but works, it ain't dumb." Vrak's claws clicked together. "You humiliated this institution." Jacko leaned in with mock seriousness. "Mate, I'm just warming up." Later that evening, Jack was summoned to the student commons. Every species was gathered, some whispering, others staring outright. A spherical drone hovered over Jack and projected a video of his trial, particularly the part where he accidentally stunned a 12-tentacled instructor drone with a deflected boomerang throw. Laughter erupted. Some alien laughed through gills. Another wheezed light particles. A reptilian hybrid student slapped its tail against the floor in delight. Jacko scratched his neck. "Hey, that bit wasn't planned. He just floated into my arc." From behind the crowd, Vrak's voice cut through the amusement. "This is not entertainment. It's mockery. I will see this earthling removed." Jack raised a hand. "Bit dramatic, don't you think? You violate our order with chaos. Your presence breeds disorder." Jacko looked around. "You lot brought a teenager from a continent where spiders eat birds. What exactly were you expecting?" No one answered. Vrak turned and stormed off. Jacko sat alone later, legs dangling off a platform, staring into the artificial stars projected above the station's dome. He pulled out a small picture. A kid with a crooked grin. His brother. One of the early human explorers, gone after a miscommunication turned into a skirmish. Jack wasn't here just a joke. He was here so no one would ever laugh at humans again, unless they started it. From behind him, a gelatinous student approached and handed over a local fruit. "You, different," it said. "Good different." Jack smiled softly. "Yeah, well, I reckon this place could use a bit of different." Commander Vrak's office was carved from black composite stone, deliberately intimidating. The light was dim, filtered through crimson slats that made everything look like it had been dipped in blood. Jacko stood dead center, arms folded, chewing gum. "This is not Earth," Vrak said, pacing with measured steps. "You will abide by our structure." "Sure thing," Jacko replied. "Just need a translation guide for structure. Because what I saw back there? Bit rigid, mate. Like someone built a school on top of a coffin." Vrak ignored the comment. "From this point forward, you are under my personal instruction. No guides. No protections. Just you, and your ability to survive." Jacko nodded slowly. "So, detention with extra steps." "Got it." The next morning began at 0500. Jacko was yanked from sleep by a high-frequency alarm designed for Scarthan warriors. It sounded like a screaming eagle being murdered in surround sound. He rolled out of his cot, eyes half shut, pulled on a shirt, and marched into the training bay barefoot. Vrak stood there waiting. Behind him, for cadets, all species with biological advantages over humans, stood in combat formation. "This is your morning drill team," Vrak said. "You will match their pace. Or be replaced." Jacko blinked. "Do I get a coffee first or?" The Scarthan didn't answer. Instead, he barked a word, and the cadets took off sprinting across the zero-gravity chamber, dodging floating obstacles, diving through laser grids, scaling magnetic walls. Jacko sighed. All right then. He didn't match their pace. He beat it. But not the same way they did. Where they leapt and hovered gracefully using built-in float bladders or magnetic hoof pads, Jacko tied elastic cords from his belt loops to wall magnets and flung himself like a slingshot. He used trash bin lids as shields and repurposed floor vents as propulsion boosts. He crashed into things. A lot. But he finished. Vrak watched him land on his back, gasping and laughing. That Was dumb, Vrak muttered. Maybe, Jacko said between breaths. But it worked. Over the next week, Jacko was thrown into everything from toxin resistance drills to diplomacy sims involving species with no vocal cords. While others memorized protocols, Jacko mimed, joked, whistled, and once communicated entirely using a set of eyebrows and a marker board. It didn't always succeed, but when it did, it succeeded loudly. Cadets started noticing. Not just Earth students. Others. Quiet ones. The ones who never won medals or earned praise. They started asking Jacko questions. Asking how he figured things out. Don't think, he told them. React. Life doesn't wait for perfect. You improvise. You adjust. You don't freeze. Commander Vrak grew more frustrated. At first, he dismissed Jacko's antics as foolishness. But the growing curiosity among students, their shift from obedience to independent thinking, angered him. He'd fought wars for order. This chaos was spreading. One evening, he summoned Jacko for a private discipline review. Jacko arrived in his usual fashion, boots untied, sleeves rolled up, carrying a meat pie from the station's weirdly enthusiastic Australian canteen module. You're undermining the mission of this academy, Vrak said flatly. Jacko took a bite. With baked goods and charisma? Damn, I'm efficient. This institution exists to train peacekeepers. Not jesters. Jacko's eyes darkened. The grin faded. You think I'm here to play, he said. My brother died in first contact. Shot trying to help someone who didn't understand a raised hand wasn't a threat. You think I came to joke? I came so no one gets laughed at again. If they're gonna laugh, fine. But it'll be because we earned it. Because we did something insane and survived anyway. Vrak paused. The moment hung heavy. Then, you will participate in tomorrow's zero-grav tactical scenario. I have personally programmed it. Jacko narrowed his eyes. That's not suspicious at all. The next day, Jacko entered the dome to find an empty asteroid simulation. No team, he called. No response. He drifted cautiously forward. Then, click. His suit jerked. Magnetic field override. Lock joints. Oxygen flow dipped. This is a test, Vrak's voice echoed from above. Escape. Or fail. Jacko's fingers twitched. His HUD glitched. No tools, no weapons. Just a float in dead silence. But Jacko wasn't built to freeze. He triggered a hard reset on the suit, forced shutdown. Brief blackout. During the reboot delay, he yanked out the inner lining of his glove, exposing the emergency override pin. With teeth and wrist strength, he snapped it loose, jammed it into the suit's base port, and initiated a manual release. It worked. The suit unlocked. But now he had no propulsion. He looked around. A floating maintenance hatch. Inside, just visible, his utility pouch from a prior drill. Jacko launched himself, using his shoe as a makeshift projectile to adjust course. He caught the edge, pulled himself in, and dug out a carbon coil wire. He fashioned a grappling hook using that, a stray bolt, and a discarded wrench. When he finally emerged from the sim pod, soaked in sweat, bruised, and carrying his own helmet in one hand, Vrak stood waiting. You could have died. Jacko wiped his brow. Could've. Didn't. You broke every safety protocol. Protocols didn't save me. Thinking did. Vrak stared long. Then walked away. That night, the transmission room lit up. Earth's delegation demanded an inquiry. The sabotage had been logged. Evidence collected. Formal protest. But Jacko stopped them. I'm staying. They protested. He insisted. If I leave, they win. And next time, they won't test us. They'll write us off. A few days later, Jacko was back in the commons. Sore. Exhausted. but whole. The Zarnath student, whose species previously refused contact without written formality, handed him a gift, a crude sculpture of a rope bridge. "What's this?" "You taught us," the Zarnath said. "Stability is found in the sway." Jacko blinked. Then laughed. "Bloody poetic, mate." From the far side of the room, Commander Vrak watched in silence. He didn't speak. But he didn't interrupt either. The arena was quiet. Not silent, just expectant. The kind of quiet that sinks into your bones and makes your breath feel too loud. Lights hummed above. Alien delegates from across the galaxy filled the observation deck, their translator drones drifting like halos behind their heads. The entire Interstellar Council had tuned in. At the center of the chamber, Jacko Monroe rolled his shoulders and cracked his knuckles. "Not bad for a Tuesday," he muttered. Across from him, Commander Vrak stood motionless, armor-plated, plasma axe in hand, expression unreadable. 6 eyes narrowed on the human like a bird of prey studying a mouse. "Final trial," the announcer's voice echoed. "Combat demonstration, adaptive versus traditional warrior class. Both have consented. Non-lethal limitations in place." Vrak's grip tightened. "Regret your decision yet, Earthling?" he asked, low and bitter. Jacko tilted his head. "Regrets for people who pack sunscreen to the outback." When the horn sounded, Vrak moved like thunder. A blur of scaly muscle and metal. Jacko ducked, rolled, and kept moving. He knew he couldn't win in a straight-up fight. Vrak was twice his size, bred for war, and had the reach of a garden shed. But Jacko wasn't trying to outfight him. He was trying to outthink him. First strike came fast. Vrak's axe sliced the air, missing Jacko by inches. The force knocked Jacko back against the arena wall. He scrambled up and tossed something small onto the floor. Didn't look like much. Just a magnet. Just enough. As Vrak advanced, the magnetic chip latched onto the armor joint behind his knee. He slowed. Barely noticeable, but Jacko noticed. He circled. Threw a feint. Dodged again. Kept talking. "You know," he panted, "I've been chased by bulls, crocs, even a really angry emu once. Never thought I'd add lizard with a lightsaber to the list." Vrak lunged. Jacko twisted, barely escaping a brutal sweep. His hoodie tore at the side. He dove behind a column, pulled a device from his boot, a short-circuited shocker pad rigged from his earlier drills. "You hide," Vrak spat, stalking. "Like all weak species." Jacko clicked the pad active. "Nah. Just prefer not getting decapitated before breakfast." He tossed it under the column. Vrak stepped forward, and the pad discharged, overloading the field beneath him. The commander stumbled, not downed, but paused. Jacko sprinted. By minute 5, Jacko was bleeding from a shallow cut across his temple. He ignored it. His focus was razor-sharp. He needed more than tricks. He needed to end it. Not with humiliation. Not with mockery. With proof. Vrak snarled and charged again, this time too fast. Jacko didn't dodge. He jumped straight into the path, and grabbed the haft of the axe. The force flung him like a ragdoll, but as he spun through the air, he planted something on Vrak's back. Click. Second magnet. Charged. The moment Vrak turned, Jacko slammed his boot against the arena floor, triggering a feedback loop in the magnet's circuitry. Vrak's armor pulsed, flickered, then locked. Briefly. Long enough. Jacko moved in, slid beneath him, grabbed the haft of the axe, and yanked hard. It didn't disarm him. But it threw Vrak off balance just long enough for Jacko to land a shock charge on his tail, specifically calibrated for neural disruption. The massive warrior dropped to one knee. Silence fell again. Jacko stepped back, panting, shirt half-shredded, knuckles raw. He didn't raise a fist. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a can of cold beer. Walked over. Cracked it open. And held it out. Vrak stared. Jacko grinned. Truce? The arena erupted, not with cheers. Not yet. First came shock. Whispers and languages that hummed, hissed, and blinked in pulses. And then, laughter. Real, unexpected laughter. Not mockery. Surprise. Relief. Admiration. The Zarnath clicked their appreciation. The Duratsi slapped their wings. Even the Vrumtar vibrated in approval. From the observation deck, the Earth delegation stood stunned. One of them mouthed, "He offered him a beer?" The announcer's voice returned, hesitant at first. Combat demonstration concluded. Human delegate, victory by tactical neutralization. Later, in the med bay, Jacko sat shirtless, a dermal patch on his ribs. A nurse smeared ointment on his neck. He winced but didn't complain. Across from him, Vrak sat silently, tail twitching. Jacko glanced over. "You all right? You fight without discipline." Jacko shrugged. "And you fight like a textbook. Guess that's why I'm here." Vrak studied him for a long moment. Then said, "Perhaps, chaos is a survival trait." Jacko's eyebrows rose. Was that a compliment? It was a possibility. Jacko smirked. Close enough. A week later, the Interstellar Council formally recognized Earth as a cultural wildcard, not just a fledgling species, but one capable of adaptation, unpredictability, and unsettling resilience. Jacko was offered an ambassadorial role at Unity Halo. He declined. Instead, he stayed on as a combat instructor. "I teach creative problem solving," he explained. "And how to survive with duct tape and poor judgment." During his first class, he held up a wrench, a tennis ball, and an empty soda can. "All right, team," he said. "First lesson, never underestimate what looks stupid. Because the galaxy's full of people who will, and that's your biggest advantage." He paused, then added. "Oh, and if someone tries to lecture you while holding a plasma axe, offer 'em a beer."